batting practice?
It's different. You'll see. You'll get a sense.
Governor, quickly,
yeah.
Have you seen anything on Pope Francis's encyclical, and how do you feel about him taking on climate?
Okay. First of all, the pontiff has leaks too. That's amazing. No, I haven't. I'm waiting until Thursday when it's released, and I'll read it and I will I'll reflect on it.
I thought it was Wednesday.
Okay. That's today?
Yes.
I haven't read it. I was told yesterday it was Thursday. I commented on it in anticipation of its arrival. Look, the climate is changing. There's lots of things that we could do that aren't political or doesn't create a partisan divide or a political divide about that issue. And I live in Miami, a place where this will have an impact over the long haul. And I think we need to develop a consensus about how to approach this without hollowing out our industrial core, without taking jobs away from people, without creating more hardship for the middle class of this country. And I think we can do it. I believe that there are technological solutions for just about everything, and I'm sure there's one for this as well. So I respect the Pope. I think he's an incredible leader, but I think it's better to solve this problem in the political realm. But I'm going to read what he says, of course. I'm a Catholic and try to follow the teachings of the Church.
Governor,
you just... government role in climate change? I think you can create incentives for adapting to this. It might be different in Iowa than it is in Florida. I think they're going to be how you create strategies, long-term strategies to deal with infrastructure, water, all the other things that might come into play, or droughts or other things that, if it becomes clear and there's a consensus on how to approach it, the federal government can play a role providing incentives for sure.
One of the things the Pope has said is the denial of climate change is immoral. Do you agree with that?
I'm not denying that the climate's changing. So, look,
do you think that it's man-made?
I go to church to have my faith nourished, to have my faith challenged. I think Pope Francis is an extraordinary leader of the church whose teachings I try to follow, and it doesn't need to get any more complicated than that. That's why I go to Mass. I don't go to Mass for economic policy or for things in politics. I got enough people helping me along the way with that.
Governor, one of my colleagues recently had a story about the first out transgender military officer. She's in the Army. Do you think that transgender people should be allowed to serve openly in the armed forces?
No. I'm sure there's a role for everybody to play in the armed forces. I think it would depend on the specific role, of whether it's appropriate or not. The first priority for the military is to create an environment where the morale's high, where people are trained, where we have the best fighting force. And if you can accommodate that in that kind of environment, I don't think there's a problem for it. But I don't know anything. I have no knowledge of the specifics of that.
Hey, Governor, Donald Trump yesterday said a lot of things. One of the things he said is that he would build this really big wall along the Mexican border.
Yeah.
Is that something that sounds rational, feasible to you?
No.
He criticized your dress as well. Any thoughts on that?
None.
Do you think that African Americans were disproportionately affected by the felon voter purge in Florida in 2000 and 2004?
I don't think so. I don't think there was any. No. I mean, if you're saying, did the Florida Department of Law Enforcement target African Americans? No.
Governor, there's a bill in the House right now that would allow parents to opt their children out of testing from No Child Left Behind.
The House of what?
In the House of Representatives, the U.S. House of
Congress?
Yeah, in Congress.
It's not a federal issue. It'd be ironic that people that are saying the federal government shouldn't be involved in education policy, and I'm one of those, would then use the federal government to do just that.
But what do you feel about there's been a backlash from parents and students?
Yeah, I think there's a lot on testing, probably too much testing, but I do believe that if you're going to have any accountability in the K-12 system in the 50 states, in the 13,000 separate school districts of this country, you've got to have testing. You've got to be able to assess. If you don't measure, you don't care. And the Florida experience is that we had a test that drove student achievement. We have, if you look at the nation's report card, the NAEP test, which is you can't teach to, and it is administered faithfully. There's no one's arguing that it's not done the right way. Florida's had the greatest learning gains, and we're one of a handful of states that's narrowed the achievement gap between kids of color and white kids and kids of low income and kids that are in the middle or higher income. And so I believe in robust accountability, school choice, higher standards, a focus on early childhood literacy, across the board, all-in commitment to move to a customized student learning system. And I know that that will yield a better result because I was governor of a state that did it. And this is not a political thing. This should be a national priority for our country to assure that more than 40% of our kids are college or career ready after we spend more per student than any country in the world other than, because I got PolitiFacted on this, Luxembourg and some other rounding error, for crying out loud. I mean, these are the results we have, and we're arguing about the wrong things. We should be arguing about, is it right for kids to not be able to read and write and calculate math and have a sense of history and a sense that their lives can be of purpose and meaning, where they think they've graduated from high school with something of value and it turns out they have to start by taking high school math and high school reading again in college, and they're not career ready? I mean, we're missing the whole argument about the importance of education. And so now that I'm a candidate and there's differing views about this, I get to go share my passion for this. And I am passionate about it.
Governor, you suggested that charities need to pick up the slack as government shrinks. Is that something that you would do in some sort of formal way? And is that sort of reminiscent of what your brother did?
It's reminiscent of what I did and what other governors have done and what charitable organizations have done since the beginning of the founding of our country. And when I suggest that we need to limit government's role, hopefully it will be proportional to our growth as a nation, to our own income. We're not talking about dramatic cuts in spending, just making government grow at a slower rate than personal income growth. That should be the objective, and if you do that, you rebalance the role of government in our lives. And sure, we should encourage the big and caring hearts of our communities to act on it. They're already doing it, and government could be a partner in that. There's no reason why they can't.
Real quick, Governor, you're out here today with your youngest son.
I like the button.
Your youngest son, your oldest son is in Nevada. You yourself have been a surrogate like this in the past. I'm curious if you have any advice for them and what you make of having them on the road with you.
Well, you should ask him. Jeb? Come over here. You about ready to get a question?
Well, first,
I love it.
Have you?
I love the fact that he's. I just want to make sure that he provides for his beautiful wife and the two most spectacular granddaughters in the world. But I'm proud that George and he are actively involved in the campaign. And my advice is have fun, do it with joy in your heart. Don't get too wonky. You know, use the kind of humor that he's got to take me down a notch or two. I've already seen it. I've read the clips today.
Dressed it up well today, though.
Thank you.
Governor, you said
this is the best I got, by the way, in the dress code.
Gotta head out. Thanks.
Do one more?
One more.
You said in New Hampshire yesterday that religion should be more about making us better people and less about influencing the political realm. You said today that your Catholic faith heavily informs your worldview. So it seems a little bit in conflict.
I'm saying exactly what you said. If I did.
Yesterday?
Yeah.
I can read you the quote. You want?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, it was, sorry. Drum roll, please, right?
Because I do believe faith should, I believe.
Yeah, you said in your town hall yesterday, quote, I think religion ought to be about making us better as people and less about things that end up getting into the political realm.
Yeah, I don't think we should politicize our faith. That's, that if you're a person of faith, you shouldn't be able to act on it in the political realm. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
So I'm wondering, if you were elected president, how heavily would your Catholic faith inform your policymaking?
Same as it does now and same as it did as governor. With respect, understanding that my views are not the universal views, but I think it's okay to have a set of principles that are informed by some moral underpinning, whether it's, in my case, my Catholicism, or other people's case, just their belief in a set of principles that they adhere to that may not be faith-driven. I mean, that's being a human being, and I'm surprised that this is such an extraordinarily complicated thing, but maybe I'm not expressing it well. Am I missing something?
No,
okay.
I'm just...
Good.
Governor,
I'm glad.
You set a target of 4% growth
yeah.
in your speech. That's something that you
How much time you got?
Neither Republicans. How much time you got?
Well, apparently I don't have enough.
That's something neither Republican nor Democratic presidents have achieved on any consistent basis over the last 30 or 40 years. Do you have new policies in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. The only way, there's no way to grow at 4% with the current policies in place. The new normal, the current policies, there's no way. We've allowed for the regulatory system to creep into a place that limits economic growth. Started long before Barack Obama became president, but accelerated under his watch. We've allowed since 1987 a tax code to be rife with all sorts of expenditures, basically $1.2 trillion of annual expenditures that are in the form of deductions and tax credits and creating barriers of entry of the next generation of job creators to protect the incumbents. And so simplifying the code has to be part of this. We have a current president that should, instead of celebrating this extraordinary success of hydraulic fracking and horizontal drilling, feels threatened by it for somehow. Back to climate change, the United States in the last decade has seen a significant reduction in carbon emissions, not because of any Washington program, it's because of this extraordinary revolution of the combination of American ingenuity and American entrepreneurship and American private property rights to see a reduction. We have our carbon footprint is the same as it was in 1995, and we have, what, 50 million more people. And so embracing the energy revolution to create a American century that's based on that going forward, and dealing with the fiscal structural problems that we face, all of these things together, and immigration reform, where we bring young, dynamic people into our country to rebuild the demographic pyramid. In order to grow at 4%, just to do the math on this, you got to have a growing population, and you got to have more productivity. It's people times the output that they bring. And to grow that at 4%, we have to have a better workforce, we have to have a better educated population, we have to embrace our energy